The next document reads, Declassified Stage Provocations. Now, honestly, Mr. President, I wish I was making this stuff up. I'm certain you are familiar with the USS Maine incident, the sinking of the Lusitania, which we all now know brought us into World War I, and of course the most famous, the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
Of course I'm familiar with these historical events, and I'm aware there's a measure of controversy surrounding them, but to be quite frank with you, this is all ancient history, just as you soon will be once my ninjas are through with you. To continue your dialogue, you must earn the privilege. You must defeat my ninjas while you finish your spiel.
Mr. President, it has often been said, those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. And I concede to you, sir, these events are the past.
A vastly different world, young man, shouldering a radically desperate state of universal affairs.
No argument, sir. I'm merely inviting you to acknowledge some credibility to the pattern or the theme. Case in point, the next document in your folder. It was published by the think tank Project for a New American Century, and it's entitled Rebuilding America's Defenses, and was written by Dick Cheney and Jeb Bush. To quote from the document, sir,
Further, the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic or catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor.
Touché, sir. Your thoughts on this statement, Mr. President?
I would call this a blatant case of misjudgment, fueled by an unfortunate melee of assumption. For some, the uninformed denial of coincidence.
Interesting angle, sir. Nevertheless, Vice President Dick Cheney didn't stop there. In early 2008, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Seymour Hersh and MSNBC both reported that Cheney had proposed to the Pentagon an outrageous plan to have the U.S. Navy create fake Iranian patrol boats to be manned by Navy SEALs, who would then stage an attack on U.S. destroyers in the Straits of Hormuz. This event was to be blamed on Iran and used as a pretext for war. Does any of this information worry you, Mr. President? Should we just ignore it until these realities can be dismissed years from now by our children as an ancient history as well?
Of course this information worries me, yet it's not as nearly as worrisome as you sitting here today suspiciously implying that 9/11 was somehow allowed to happen, or even orchestrated from the inside.
Mr. President, I'm not suspiciously implying anything. I'm merely exposing the documents and asking the questions that nobody in power will ever look at or acknowledge. And as I stated earlier, I voted for you. I believe in your message of hope and change. Mr. President, I have come to you specifically hoping for a change in the perception that our government has not yet made itself open and accountable to the people. These are your words, Mr. President, not mine. The lives of thousands were brutally cut down, and those left behind to suffer their infinite pain are with me today, Mr. President. They're with me in spirit and flesh, and the message we carry will not be silenced anymore by media-fueled mantras insisting how we are supposed to feel, deciding for them for 8 long years what can be thought, what can be said, what can be asked.
And I appreciate your passion. I appreciate your conviction. In spite of your concerns, in spite of what your data might or might not reveal, what you and the families must understand and accept is that we are doing everything we can to protect you.
Mr. President, I realize we're very short on time, so please allow me to run down a list of bullet points that might illuminate some reasons why we don't embrace the warm hug of federal protection.
Right away!
Please keep in mind, Mr. President, everything I'm about to say is documented as fact and part of the public record. The information you are holding in your hand chronicles and verifies each and every point.
You have 5 minutes left. The floor is yours. Brief me.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, first. On the FBI's most wanted list, Osama bin Laden is not charged with the crimes of 9/11. When I called the FBI to ask them why this was the case, they replied, "There's not enough evidence to link bin Laden to the crime scene." I later discovered he had never even been indicted by the DOJ. Number 2. FBI translator Civil Edmonds was dismissed and gagged by the DOJ after she revealed that the government had foreknowledge of plans to attack American cities, using planes as bombs as early as April 2001. In July of 2009, Mrs. Edmonds broke the federal gag order and went public to reveal that Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban were all working for and with the CIA up until the day of 9/11. Number 3. The following is a quote from Mayor Giuliani during an interview on 9/11 with Peter Jennings for ABC News.
I went down to the scene and we set up headquarters at 75 Barclay Street, which was right there with the police commissioner, the fire commissioner, the head of emergency management. And we were operating out of there when we were told that the World Trade Center was going to collapse. And it did collapse before we could actually get out of the building. So we were trapped in the building for 10, 15 minutes and finally found an exit and got out, walked north, and took a lot of people with us.
Who told him this? To this day, the answer to this question remains unanswered, completely ignored, and emphatically denied by Mayor Giuliani on several public occasions. Number 4. In April 2004, USA Today reported, in the 2 years before the September 11 attacks, the North American Aerospace Defense Command conducted exercises simulating what the White House says was unimaginable at the time. Hijacked airliners used as weapons to crash into targets and cause mass casualties. One of the targets was the World Trade Center. Number 5. On September 12, 2007, CNN's Anderson Cooper, 360, reported that the mysterious white plane spotted and videotaped by multiple media outlets flying in restricted airspace over the White House shortly before 10 a.m. on the morning of 9/11 was in fact the Air Force's E-4B, a specially modified Boeing 747 with a communications pod behind the cockpit, otherwise known as the Doomsday Plane. Though fully aware of the event, the 9/11 Commission did not deem the appearance of the military plane to be of any interest and did not include it in the final 9/11 Commission report. Number 6. 3 F-16s assigned to Andrews Air Force Base, 10 miles from Washington, D.C., are conducting training exercises in North Carolina, 207 miles away, as the first plane crashes into the World Trade Center. Even at significantly less than their top speed of 1,500 miles per hour, they could still have defended the skies over Washington well before 9 a.m., more than 37 minutes before Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. However, they did not return until after 9:55 a.m. Andrews Air Force Base had no armed fighters on alert and ready to take off on the morning of 9/11. Number 7. World Trade Center Building 7. Watch the video of its collapse. Number 8. Flight 93 is the fourth plane to crash on 9/11 at 10:03 a.m. Vice President Cheney only gives the shoot-down order at 10:10 to 10:20 a.m., and this is not communicated to NORAD until 28 minutes after Flight 93 has crashed. Fueling further suspicion on this front is the fact that 3 months before the attack on 9/11, Dick Cheney usurped control of NORAD, and therefore he, and no one else on planet Earth, had the power to call for military sorties on the hijacked airliners on 9/11. He did not exercise that power. 3 months after 9/11, he relinquished command of NORAD and returned it to military operation. Number 9. Scores of mainstream news outlets reported that the FBI conducted an investigation of at least 5 of the 9/11 hijackers being trained at U.S. military flight schools. These investigations are now sealed and need to be declassified.